Welcome to HR Hospitality Blueprint, a think tank media podcast. Hosted by Chris Oclaray and Tim Flohr, this show explores the leadership, workplace culture, and people strategies that help individuals and organizations thrive. Through conversation, actionable takeaways, and challenges you can put into practice, each episode helps professionals grow with confidence, because hospitality is more than an industry, it's a mindset. Let's get into it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the second episode of the Hospitality HR Blueprint. I am the co-host, Chris Oclaray, along with my co-host, Tim Flohr.
So nice seeing all of
We're
you.
happy to be back. Yeah. Anything going on with you, Tim? Anything new going on?
Not much in my world. How about you, Chris?
Oh, in the world of HR, there's always something going on, especially in hospitality. But we wanted to talk today about interviewing. Our first episode was a bit of an introduction and get to know us and what's to come on the podcast. And we thought we would start from the very beginning. I mean, how do you get a job in hospitality? How do you start your career in hospitality? And that starts with interviewing. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts, give you some takeaway tips, go through some scenarios. Tim and I will just converse and we'll talk as if, perhaps we may even mock interview at some point, but we're happy that you have rejoined us. Anything you want to add to that, Tim?
Now, interviewing is always one of those things that it puts people on edge. And I know you probably interview hundreds of people a year for different positions. But it's going to be interesting hearing it from an HR executive like yourself, what you're looking for when you're interviewing someone. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's a topic I'm passionate about because it's something that people have control over to a certain extent, right? There are not a lot of things, or there are some things that we don't have control over, but when you are interested in a hospitality position or starting your career, that begins with the interview process, and you can really make or break that. And so we're excited to give you some takeaways and some real life scenarios. I think you would agree, Tim, that interviewing in hospitality or for hospitality roles is a bit unique because hospitality is all about service. So it's not necessarily just technical skills, but there's a lot of personality that has to come through in that interview.
Exactly. So it takes right to the very beginning and how we prepare for interviews. So what are some things that you think from the preparation process that people can do to get ready for that big day when they're sitting across from HR?
So, the first thing, obviously, you're applying for a position, you're looking at the job description. Make sure you understand the job description. You really are a fit for that role. Look at the requirements, the necessary requirements. Do you have the proper years of experience that's required? Do you have the necessary skills that they're asking of you? Starting with your resume, make sure that your resume is tailored to that position. For example, if you're starting your career in hospitality and you want to apply for a front desk position, and say you've worked in the restaurant business or you are in food and beverage, maybe going through college, well, tailor that resume to focus on customer service and not necessarily just the food and beverage side of things. So getting your resume right and aligning it with the position that you're applying for is key. Just a little bit about resumes, since we're on resumes, and we'll be brief on this because we can do a whole nother podcast on resume writing, but just some really quick tips. You want to make sure, one, you don't have your picture on your resume. If you want the interviewer or the hiring manager or the company to know more about you, you can include your LinkedIn profile instead of a picture. Resumes should not be more than 2 pages long. If you're just starting your career, it's preferred to have 1 page and the correct information. Make sure you are running that resume through spell check, grammar check. You are proofreading it, triple reading it to make sure that it is current, up to date. You don't have any typos or any kind of grammatical errors, but we can do resume writing on another podcast. So resume is your first thing. You're interested in this company, right? And so you are scheduled for an interview. You get called back, say you apply online. A good best practice to do is a couple days before or the day before, call that hiring manager or email that hiring manager and just confirm, hey, I'm really excited. I'm just confirming our interview for tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'm really looking forward to meeting you, and I'll see you then. That way you're confirming the right place and the time, one. And then secondly, you are showing interest, a valid interest, and it separates you from the competition, right? You're putting yourself out there and you're showing that you are excited to show up for this opportunity and that this is the opportunity you want. Okay. So after you get to your interview, let's talk about preparing. So make sure you research the company. Okay. Most companies have websites. You may perhaps know somebody who works for the company. The hospitality industry is small, particularly in local areas. And if you're interested in that, say you're just coming out of school or you're going from one company to another, it's very likely that you know somebody who works for that company. So find out about the company, see what their culture is like. Find out a little bit. If you know who's going to be interviewing you, I would look them up on LinkedIn just so you can know a little bit about them. You can relate to them, and perhaps you have common interests that you can bring up to make the interview more personable. Know where you're going. So prior to your interview, I would do a test drive, a test run. Know how long it takes for you to get there. Make sure you know where to park. A lot of hospitality opportunities are in downtown areas where perhaps parking is not readily available or easily accessible. You may have to park in a lot nearby and walk to the hotel, the property, the office, whatever it may be. You can no longer use traffic as an excuse because traffic is in every city, right? I mean, everyone talks about growing pains with traffic, whether it's Tennessee or Texas or California or Hawaii, there's traffic everywhere. So just do that test run and make sure you know where you're going. I mentioned knowing the job position. So make sure that you read that job posting very carefully so that you can speak to how your experience in that field relates to the position and why you'd be good for that position. Okay. Let's talk about, let's move on to the actual interview, right? And before we do that, I would recommend that you arrive 15 minutes early at the very least. If you're on time, you're late. You want to be nice to everyone you encounter. If it's you encounter the janitor or a housekeeper, the front desk person, perhaps a server, a wait staff, be nice to everyone. You never know who you're talking to from the moment that you walk into that building. Because, for example, at Chartwell Hospitality, when we interview, our receptionist will often ask her, how was the candidate when they greeted you? Were they nice? Or sometimes she'll just come to us and say, that candidate was really, really nice, or she was super personable. She had a great personality from the beginning and so forth. So be nice to everyone. You never know who you're talking to. Arrive at least 15 minutes early. And if you are catching a ride with someone or you have friends or family with you, please do not bring them to the interview. Have them wait in an area away from where you're interviewing or in the car, perhaps where you're riding, and that's fine. Or perhaps you have plans to do something after. That's fine. Just don't bring them into the building with you when you're getting ready to go into your interview.
If I can add one thing, I would say
Yeah.
going back to what you said about doing an online search of the company, learning more about the company. So when you go into the interview, you're um, you know a little bit about the company culture and things about that you can talk about, but just know that that employer is probably going to be looking at your social media as well. So I'm not sure, Chris, if you're permitted to say or whatever, but I always tell my students, make sure your social media is clean. You don't want any HR recruiters going onto your Facebook or LinkedIn page and seeing things that are not professional on there. And unfortunately, I've done those searches with my students in classes to kind of show them like what might be deemed inappropriate there. So just know that internet works both ways. It's great for you to be able to look up the company, so you can see a little bit more about them, the recruiter, so you can find some common interests, but know that they may be looking at you as well. So I think
Yeah.
statistics were like 80% of recruiters look at your Facebook and LinkedIn and other social media. I don't know if that's high or low or about right, but just know
No,
that
you're spot on. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. The best way would be, I tell people, I used to teach a professional development course, as I mentioned in our introductory podcast, and I would tell people to Google themselves, enter your name in Google and see what comes up. You want to make sure that nothing negative comes up. And if it does, you want positive things to be at the top, right? So not just your LinkedIn profile, but you're absolutely right. I mean, social media is so transparent, right? You want to make sure that not only are you not posting things that could work against you, but that you're not commenting on things as well, or liking certain posts that can be controversial, or, I mean, it's just people will pick things apart nowadays. We live in a different world, and it's always good to Google yourself, because with AI, you just can't, I mean, you can't tell what's real and what's not. I'll give you a really good example of this is a good AI. So someone had sent me kind of a sale, like, hey, I was on this thrifting website and I saw all these Titans jerseys. As you know, I'm a Titans fan, right? We talked about that last podcast. So all these
this
game worn
tough
Titans
sometimes, I tell
jerseys.
you.
Yeah, I know. I mean, oh, it's tough right now all the time. We don't even want to talk about that. Like, it's not even relevant. They don't even show it. I heard they don't even show it in Memphis or Knoxville. They don't show the game. So anyways, I digress. Bottom line was, this person had sent me a picture of a Goodwill, and it said there was like all these game worn jerseys, and it was very comparable to what it was going for on the market. So I show up to this store, and I'm like, hey, do you have any of the game worn Titans jerseys? And they're like, oh, you're like the 100th person that has come in. That is an AI generated picture. And I was like, are you serious? I mean, it looked legit. There was price tags on it and everything.
Uh-huh.
So my point is, you never know if people are using your profile, using your name, using your employment history, whatever the case may be. Google yourself from time to time, and not just when you're interviewing for a job. If you secure that job, it's a good idea to Google yourself from time to time. So that's a great point, Tim. I'm glad you brought that up.
I Googled it before we started to find a
Yeah.
get some good talking points here.
Um, and so let's talk a little bit about the interview itself, right? The questions and how you prepare for that. You want to be confident when you're in that interview. You want this job. You applied for this job. Say it's a front desk associate, okay? And you have worked, maybe not necessarily in a hotel before or in hospitality, but say you were in college and you had a job at the school, right? And say you were working in the library. Well, that is customer service. You're interfacing with other students. So use your relevant experience and relate it to the position. Give specific examples when they ask you questions like, why do you think you're a fit for this job? If you have previous hospitality experience, great. Say that. You could say things like, well, at such and such hotel, I don't want to use certain brands, at such and such hotel, I used to be a front desk agent, and I would often get excellent guest reviews. It would make me so happy to give guests information about the area, give them things to do, places to eat. And when they would come back and say, thank you so much for those suggestions, it just made me feel like I had purpose and I was adding value to the position. Say you are applying for a housekeeping position, and maybe it's a housekeeping supervisor role, and you've worked in housekeeping for 2 to 3 years. You can relate your experience to that, and often say, well, as a housekeeper for such and such company, oftentimes the team would rely on me to train new associates, or it would make me so happy when a guest would leave me a thank you note and I did a great job in cleaning their room. I was always happy to satisfy their requests, or, bring things up to their room. I always felt like if the housekeeping manager wasn't there, I was next in line to take that leadership role. I've really learned a lot. I know how to break out boards. I know how to inspect rooms. Say all those things. It's kind of like you're bragging about your skills because you want them to see how qualified you are and why you're the right fit for that position. Anything you want to add to that, Tim?
I think that's great. Going into, you want to go into that interview being confident that that the company that you're interviewing with, that you have the skill set that's necessary for you to be successful and add value to that company. So these are all things, as you were just saying, you can highlight so many things from some of your previous jobs when you go into this interview. I think really that's what most interviewers are looking for. So what are you looking for when someone comes in and interviews with you? What are the main things you're looking for?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So in hospitality, right? Obviously, you're looking for that experience.
Mhm.
If it's an entry level position, the main thing you're looking for in hospitality is personality. You want that serviceable, hospitable, friendly, smiling personality, right? It's like, what do you look for when you check into a hotel? You're looking for a friendly face. You're looking for someone to greet you and ready to service you. So that is the most important thing, that those soft skills, you can teach someone how to operate systems at the front desk. You can teach someone how to clean a room in a certain amount of time, what the steps are that a brand requires. You can teach perhaps a maintenance tech or a houseman, right? This is how we clean this lobby. This is how we, um, you know, PM a room. This is how we walk around the building to check that everything's working okay. You can teach all those technical skills, but you can't really teach personality. So the main thing is, are you a team player? Are you friendly and ready to serve? Are you reliable? Meaning hospitality is definitely a team. Every department interacts and one cannot function without the other. If you don't have a person doing laundry, if you don't have enough laundry, you can't clean your rooms. Therefore, you can't check guests in. Therefore, you can't sell rooms. So it all links together, right? Everyone needs to help each other out. Are you a team player? Are you engaged? When you're talking to that interviewer, make sure you're looking them in the eye, because that's how you're going to talk to your guests. Are you just going to, look down like this? Or are you really going to engage and have eye contact and smile and be very personable?
Well, how are you gauging that as an interviewer? How to ascertain if someone is indeed a team player? Is it more situational type interview questions, like, tell me about a time
Yeah,
when you were okay.
exactly. Exactly. Tell me about a time where you had conflict and how did you handle that, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so questions like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Those are common questions, right? What are your strengths and weaknesses? And oftentimes people can easily speak to their strengths, right? They'll say they know what to say for the most part. You're going to say, I'm dependable. You can rely on me. I like to, I'm a self-starter. I learn things fast. I will show up to work every day. You talk about all your strengths.
Mhm.
When it comes to weaknesses, sometimes strengths can be weaknesses. For example, if you're a perfectionist, right,
Mhm.
and you want things to be perfect all the time, say you're a housekeeper and you are so meticulous and you need every single room to be clean, and you have your own standard. Well, that might be a weakness for you because you have a certain amount of time to clean a room, and you may not be able to get that room perfect in that amount of time, right? So you can, or a common weakness, like for me, I have a weakness that I have a hard time saying no. So, that's gotten better as I've gotten older because I had to learn to balance things. But I would hate in the past, or as I was going through my career, I didn't want to say no to anything. I wanted to say yes to every opportunity because every
Mhm.
opportunity made me a better person, made me learn a different skill. It just added to my tool belt, right? In
Mhm.
whatever path I was going to take, whether it was in HR or, education or as a parent. I mean, every opportunity you're given, it's hard for me to say no because I take it as a learning opportunity. So trying to turn something negative into something positive. And speaking of negative, that's something you don't want to do, is you never want to speak poorly or negatively about former employers, right? If someone's asking, this is a common question, especially if you're currently employed. Well, why do you want to leave XYZ company? You don't want to sit there and say, you know what, I don't like my boss, or I just don't like the culture. I don't like the team. I mean, it's common to say, I'm looking for more in my career. I'm looking for growth. And I don't feel like this company has that for me right now. Perhaps they do down the line, but I'm looking for a bigger company. I researched your company and your culture and the way you're growing. It really aligns with my mission to grow and my goals to grow. So some of those examples, and we'd like to put some takeaways in a PDF later that you could probably download and keep for your reference. Some best practices, some do's and don'ts.
Speaking of the don'ts part, what are some other things that to avoid? I know you said not speaking negatively about any previous employers or
Yep.
people that you worked with, but if someone's going into an interview, what are some definite don't do?
Yeah. Okay. Chew gum. Make sure you're not chewing gum. You want to make sure your cell phone is silenced and off and away. And that includes, like, if you have an Apple Watch or anything, I mean, you don't want it to constantly ding. So make sure all your devices are silenced and put away. Or if you have to have your phone out, face it down. Say you only brought that in, right? Don't wear any kind of earbuds or anything like that. Even when you walk into the office, please don't do that. I've already mentioned, don't show up with, friends and family. But you don't want to cut the interviewer off at any point.
Correct.
Listening is a key trait, right? Active listening. So you want to let the interviewer finish what they're saying. And if there are more than one interviewer in the room, you always look at that interviewer, start answering the question, but make sure you scan the other interviewer so that you're talking to everybody, and end your response with that one interviewer who asked you that question. So making sure you acknowledge everyone. Starting at the beginning when you walk in the room, right? I mean, where people can be a little weird since COVID. I don't know if I shake hands. We still shake hands here. You're in a hospitality business. So giving a firm handshake, not kind of a meek one, but just, firm and assertive and confident. A firm handshake when you introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Chris Oclaray. It's nice to meet you. Give a firm handshake. You don't want to just walk in the room and sit down, right? Let them say, hey, have a seat. Or maybe it's polite for you to say, is there a specific place that I should sit? Say you're in a boardroom and it's not just one chair. If it's just one chair, obviously I wouldn't sit yet. Wait for the interviewer to say, please have a seat. That's just, good manners. If you're in a boardroom, ask them, is there a specific seat that you would like me to sit in? What are some do's and some don'ts that you have or that you teach in your class?
Well, first off, the gum thing. For anyone that knows me, knows I have this thing called misophonia. And I say it to my classes the first day and we're going over syllabus, all that. So basically it's an adverse reaction to gum chewing, pen clicking, things like that. It'll drive me crazy. So and I have had people come in interviews slapping gum, and definite. It's horrible. But going back to what you said, have you actually had people bring friends and family to interviews? Because you say that I couldn't fathom doing that.
Yes. Yeah. And they sit out in our lobby area. And yes, we've had that done before. We've had, when you sit in an interview, sit up straight, make sure your posture is good, right? We've had people who just sit back in a chair, like, I don't know, like they're at a bar or something or at the beach and lounging back. That is
Right.
not professional. Please don't do that.
Right.
Just, I mean, you think that these things are, you don't have to say them, but you kind of do, because some people are not taught that, whether it's in high school or college, or maybe they've not had the privilege of having a mentor. So if you're someone who's maybe 18 years old and you're not going to go to college, but you want to work in the hotels, right? You may not have interview experience. You may not have had someone like a guidance counselor or someone to tell you the proper way to interview. Maybe they've never mock interviewed before. And I think that's such a great idea and such a useful exercise, is to practice with someone at home, or practice with, a friend or someone who holds a leadership position, maybe not even for the company that you're going to work for, but someone else, and just say, hey, can you just ask me questions just so I can get comfortable answering them? Right. If you mentioned like clicking and noises, and if you are someone who has a tendency to be nervous, like clicking a pen, or like playing with your hair, or just, maybe put your hands on the table and just kind of clasp them so that you're not fidgety, or you could even like sit on them if that makes you feel better. Whatever is not going to make you fidget or show any kind of nervousness, or, bad habits of, don't bite your nails, don't, pick on your nails, or stuff like that. Right. So, I mean, that's a good point.
Right. I like to think of it as this, and I'm not sure if it's the right way of looking at it or not, but when you're going in for an interview, you're both putting your best face forward, your best self out there. It's almost like you're going on a first date with somebody, and everyone's putting on that best look. So when it comes to your social media, making sure that's good. Of course, the company, their mission, vision, and values and everything is on their website. Everyone looks good on paper. So it's important to match that when you're sitting right in front of someone, and asking questions. Probably the biggest thing for me is to make sure you're going in with questions, and you understand you're interviewing that HR person or that hiring manager as much as they're interviewing you. So you need to make sure it's a good fit for you, because so many times if we're desperate looking for a job, or we're just looking for something, we're going to take whatever's there. But I think as you get further in your career, and hopefully start this earlier, where you are somewhat selective about what you're going to do and what you want to do, and know that you should be asking questions. Well, for instance, if you're going into a managerial role, so what happened to the last manager that was here? What was tell me a little about why he or she left, things like that. Find out about the culture of the place, because once you're in, if it's not a good alignment between you and the company, it's not good for either party there. So just ask questions, good questions.
Yeah. Right. We would call that a waste of time on both part, right? And
Mhm.
and time is money, and time is important. And you bring up such a good point, asking questions. We always say that in an interview. Like, do you have any questions? This is just as much an interview for you. You're trying to see if we are a fit for you just as much as we're trying to see if you are a fit for us. It has to be a fit. And we're very, I can't speak for other companies, but here we're very transparent about, where it's a fast-paced environment, right? We run very lean. We look for workers, but we like to have fun at work. We have a family type of atmosphere, but we work very hard. We don't sugarcoat anything, because we want to make sure that we hire the right person for the job. So you're absolutely right about asking questions, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I have some sample questions. Like, if you're interviewing for a managerial role, like you said, and you said earlier, I'm looking to leave my current company because I want opportunities to grow, and I'm not sure they can provide that for me. Ask the questions like, how do you develop your managers, and what opportunities are there for growth? Do you have to move in order to grow? Can you talk a little bit about your culture, like you said? And sometimes a good interviewer will come out and reflect that culture throughout the interview. You can kind of get a grasp on especially if there's more than one interviewer in the room. You can see how they interact with each other and what that chemistry or synergy is like, right? And you can get a good read off the culture. And that's important for a candidate too, is to really tune into the vibe that you're feeling. Do you feel comfortable? Did you feel comfortable from the moment you walked in that door? Like, this is where I want to work. I like it here. I feel good here. Or did you have kind of a hesitant feeling? Were people standoffish? Did you feel uncomfortable as you entered that interview room? Was the interview itself completely uncomfortable? Tap into those cues because, like you said, Tim, you are interviewing that company too. And you don't want it. The last thing you want to do is quit your current job to go where you think the grass is greener and it's not. So it's important to ask those questions. I like when people ask me, why do you like working here? How long have you been here? And why do you like working here? That, to me, it shows the interviewer that you really are doing your homework, and you really you're not just interested in a job, but you're interested in this job with this company, that you're taking the time to ask the questions. I don't know, what other questions do you recommend that they ask?
I always ask about the culture. The question, why do you how long have you worked here? What do you like about it? Um, you know, it, I like to ask the question in a year from now, you know, if I'm doing a great job here, what would I need to do in your eyes to be there and be doing a quality job and have room for advancement in this company? Show me a roadmap. Show me some type of career ladder, especially for people coming out of colleges, universities, or any other programs. HR pros like you love seeing people who have drive, ambition, asking those questions about, um, where can I be in 5 years if I follow this track?
Yeah.
Everybody loves that. So
Yeah.
just knowing that, it needs to be a great fit for both of you. Otherwise, like Chris said, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Going back to the analogy of a first date, some people are looking for Mr. and Mrs. Right, and some people are looking for Mr.
Mhm.
and Mrs. Right now. And if
Yeah,
it's going to
you're
be a
right.
long term, if it's going to be a long term job for you in a career, you need to make sure it's a good fit. So doing your research online about the company, following up, asking specific questions. And if you do see something online that seems bothersome to you, or something that might be a potential red flag, bring it up,
Yeah.
and talk to them about it. So
Yeah, I agree. Some other good questions is, you could ask, what do you look for in someone who's applying for this role, right? That can give you an idea if you are aligned with what they're looking for. What qualities do your top team members have? Things like that. I think when you ask about what do you see, in 5 years for this role, or where do you see this company in 5 years? That's a good question too. We always tell when we interview candidates for a general manager position, say we have a new hotel opening, or we love to promote from within. We really do at Chartwell Hospitality, and we're very proud of that. And that creates a domino effect, right? Like, we just opened our Town Place Suites in Murfreesboro. And so we promoted a general manager from within our company, and that created a domino effect because other positions will open. If we have an external candidate, we always tell that candidate, hey, if you really feel like you're a fit for this position and we feel like they're a final candidate, we tell them, go on our website and look at our general managers, go through the properties, call any one of them, ask them what it's like to work for us. We're not going to tell you who to call. You just pick whoever you want to call. Ask them what it's like to work for us. We encourage you to walk into any of our hotels, say they're local. I'm pointing out my window because there's 4 of our hotels right outside our corporate office. But we tell them, walk into our hotels, talk to the staff, get a feel of what the hotels are like. That gives you an idea of what our culture is like as well. So, I think when you're asking these questions, you also want to know what kind of company it is that you're going to work for. Is it a company that's very transparent, that's very open and wants to invest in their people and develop their people? Or is it a company that just wants workers, right? Just to get the job done? There's 2 different companies.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So, um,
Let's talk about I know we're coming to an end, but can I
mhm.
talk about proper dressing? And that's
Okay.
important.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, you want to read the room, right? It's always better to be overdressed than underdressed. And when I say overdressed, I don't mean like in an evening gown or a tux or something like that. But if you're not sure, for males, wear a sport jacket, right? With a button-up shirt, slacks, nice pair of shoes. Make sure your hair is neatly groomed. Scents, whether it be cologne or perfume, please do not overdo that. You never know if your interviewer is sensitive to scents. Sometimes if you overspray, it can be overbearing, and that is distracting. It's an indirect distraction in the interview room. So be mindful of your scents. Make sure you're neatly groomed. For women, you want to wear like, a nice dress. I would recommend nothing sleeveless for the interview. Have a blazer on if you do, slacks, not necessarily jeans. It's always better to wear closed-toed shoes, but if you're interviewing in the summer and it's, 101 degrees outside, we get that. Make sure you're not wearing flip-flops, but you're wearing a nice pair of sandals, right? You also want to read the room in hospitality. There's a lot of different positions, and some of these positions are creative positions like bartenders or chefs, or, in that case, I mean, some people come to their interview in their chef's coat, and that's fine. If you're a bartender and, you're very artistic, tattoos are a norm nowadays. They are, but try to cover them up as much as possible. But if you're applying for a bartender position, and this is why it's important to do your research on the company. Say you're applying to a hotel, but that hotel has a large food and beverage focus, maybe 3 or 4 bars in the hotel, and their bars are very popular in the city. You want to go to those bars, check out what the vibe is like, look at what the bartenders are dressed like, and then kind of match your interview attire to whatever they're wearing. But then again, it's always better to err on the side of caution, right? Be a little bit more professional. Women, females, if you have a tendency to play with your hair or twirl your hair, tie it back. Tie it back so it's clean looking and it's not there for you to be messing with. Males too, if you have long hair, kind of tie it back so it's neatly groomed. But I think we miss touching on how to dress, and I think that's very important.
And just remember that smile is part of your uniform and your
Right.
dress. So make sure you have that because that goes a long way. And as Chris said earlier, with regards to cologne, a little goes a long way. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's that's not something that people think of often, right? But it can kind of leave a lasting impression if it's really strong, or again, like the interviewer is sensitive or allergic and it's causing them to sneeze or have allergies. They may cut the interview short because they can't handle the environment. So you don't want that, right? You don't want anything to work negative against you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've talked about what to do before the interview, some success tips during. How about after the interview?
Yeah. Good point.
What are some
Good.
things that you can do to help after that interview ends?
Yeah. So when you're closing the interview, right, and you've asked all your questions and the interview is coming to a close, some good some good questions to ask would be, when are you looking to fill this position? When can I expect to hear from you? I would always close out by saying, I want to thank you for the opportunity again to let me interview for this position. After speaking with you, I'm even more excited about the company and the position. I strongly feel I'm a fit. Say that only if you mean it. If you don't mean that, don't say that, right? Again, you want to make sure it's a fit. But if you truly feel that way, then say that. I think I'm so excited. I'm really looking forward to hearing back from you. Can you tell me when I can expect to hear back from you? Once you leave, I would then thank you notes are always nice. And I think this is a dying art, not just in interviews, but just in life in general. And it's so easy to shoot over an email, and you should, right? You should Make sure you get all your interviewers' names and contact information and send a quick email saying, hey, again, it was a pleasure speaking with all of you. After speaking with you, and maybe relay some things in there like, I love your company's mission. I love when we talked about the opportunities for growth and how you develop your people. I strongly feel like this is a place I really want to grow my career with, and I look forward to hearing back from you. Handwritten notes make you stand out. So even if you send that email, I would still write a handwritten note, especially to the main hiring manager, the person that you have been in touch with, the person that's been corresponding with you to organize the interview, set up the time, and so forth. Send that person a thank you note. You can address it to him or her and the team. If there was a team of interviewers, send that thank you note via mail. It really goes a long way and it means a lot. I would give it, obviously if they say, hey, we're interviewing for another week or two, or like we're coming up on the holidays. And if we were interviewing, we would say, look, Thanksgiving's next week. We're going through budgets. It may be a couple weeks. I would give them that time. But if you don't hear back within, say, 7 to 10 days, if they said it's going to be a couple weeks, just send an email and say, hey, I know you said it was going to be a couple weeks and we're nearing that point. I just thought I would check in and let you know I'm still interested in the position. If they say, you'll hear from us in 1 to 2 days, well, give them a couple days. And if you don't hear from them, then follow up with an email or a phone call and just say, I'm just checking to see I'm very much interested in the position. Have you made a decision yet? Do you have anything to add, Tim?
I would add two things. First is, especially I see this a lot with students in universities, perhaps going for internships or their first jobs, especially with internships. If you're going to be taking another job, make sure to let that recruiter know or that person that's interviewing you. So don't leave them hanging if you interview well and you decide to go another direction. Just let them know. And when you make a decision, stick with that. It's always great professional practice to be upfront and candid with people at all times. And the second thing is, you can interview really well and it might not be a good fit for that position you're going for, but it might be a great opportunity down the road with that same company in another role. So don't discount the fact that if you interview well and you had a great connection with the person interviewing you and maybe you didn't get the job, follow up anyway. I always like to send it, regardless of I'm interviewing or not, send a LinkedIn invite to someone. Hey, it was great meeting you today. Thank you for the interview, and send that off. That's number one, a great way to build up your LinkedIn network. And secondly, it keeps people thinking about you. And you know what? There may be a position a couple of weeks or months down the road. And they're like, you know what? Tim interviewed really well. I'm going to give him a call. So just things to think about. End it on a positive note and always be networking. That person you interviewed with, they HR people will even go other places too. So it's always good to build great network and great connections with people.
Good point. I mean, that there's so many times where, say, maybe we had two great candidates and we chose one, we don't have a spot for the other. Well, we often, like you said, network, right? So HR colleagues, and I may have an HR colleague at another company, or I often get people like from the associations that send me, hey, this person just finished an intern with us, or they interviewed with us, but we don't have any opportunities for them. They may be a fit for your company, and we may do the same thing. So, I think that you make a good point. Send the LinkedIn, send the request. Networking is important. When you close out that interview, don't let your personality or smile drop. Keep that energy throughout the interview so they know that that is genuinely how you are and how you will service the guests or your team.
Right. And I guess one last thing, if it comes down to two people, and it might be a situation where they want to go with another candidate, but they might reach out to the candidate and it turns out they may have taken another position or not able to relocate or for whatever reason, just always keep that in mind and knowing ending it positively and always have that foot in the door. Our industry is massive, a global industry, but it's also really small too. So you want to make sure you're making great connections, and that's going to follow you throughout your career.
Yeah, we've had situations before where we've had someone take a role and it didn't work out. And then you have that backup candidate and you call them back in 60 days, or, you're like, hey, I know we went a different direction. We spoke about that, but it just didn't work. Are you still interested? So you're right. You never know. I mean, you never want to burn bridges. You always want to keep doors open, right? That's what I always say.
Agreed, 100%. So
Well, I don't think I have, I mean, we can go on and talking about interviews. Like we said, we're going to try to get some PDFs and some great takeaways for you all to have as resources that you can download. Did you have anything else to add, Tim?
no, it's great. This being our second podcast together.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy talking with you. And I think HR is such an important topic, and for not only for talk about resume writing, we'll probably do some other shows on that, but interviewing is such a big one. So I'm glad we touched on that today. Hopefully everyone was able to get some great pointers from today's podcast. So thank you.
Um, People are able to engage with us. If you have scenarios or questions or a situation that you want some HR advice in, please reach out to us and share that with us so we can talk about it in our future podcasts. But we do want to thank you so much for hanging out with us. Like we say, we're shaping people, shaping hospitality. This is your Hospitality HR Blueprint podcast, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Take care now.
Thanks for spending time with us on HR Hospitality Blueprint, part of Think Tank Media and Hospitality Nexus, a global, human-first platform connecting the hospitality ecosystem in one place, like a career fair that never closes. Watch all episodes at hospitalitynexus.org. Until next time, keep building people, strengthening culture, and elevating hospitality.